Station. This is Houston. Are you ready for the event?
Houston, this is Station. I am ready for the event.
Houston ACR, this is Mission Control Houston. Please call Station for a voice check.
Station, this is Houston ACR. How do you hear me?
ACR, this is Station. Got you loud and clear. Help me.
I hear you loud and clear. Please stand by for opening remarks.
Welcome to the Strassenberg Planetarium at the Rochester Museum and Science Center. I'm Congressman Joe Morelli. I want to thank NASA for this downlink with the astronauts aboard Expedition 68 of the International Space Station and the students of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. School Number 9 for their enthusiastic participation. For more than 50 years, our planetarium has inspired learners of all ages, myself included, to explore the universe, continuing with today's event. To quote Arthur C. Clarke, any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. I agree. Today is a moment of magic. Now, here's our first question.
Hi, my name is Solianis Morales. My question is, what happens if an engine or space station breaks down?
Well, I'll tell you what, that's a great way to start us off because the space station is a very complicated vehicle, but we've got some incredibly smart people on the ground who help us manage any kind of situation like that. NASA actually has a term for it. It's called being fault tolerant. What they mean is, how many more problems can we handle and not have a really, really big problem? And so we never want to be zero fault tolerant. We always want to make sure that we can handle one more bad thing. And so we've got redundancy, meaning we've got backups for all our systems. We've always got another plan that we could put into practice if we needed to get ourselves out of a bad situation, whether we're doing robotics, whether we're doing spacewalks, or whether we're working here in the space station and we need to maintain a healthy environment inside. So what we do is we make sure we don't get ourselves into a spot where we can't get out. And we've got all these backups to make sure we stay safe.
Hi, my name is Javi. My question is, what does it take to become an astronaut, and why would someone want to become one?
Hey, Javi, I'll tell you what, I have no idea. I was actually on vacation in Florida. I got on a amusement park ride. Next thing I knew, I was here on the space station. They put me to work. Actually, I'll tell you, for me, I've always been interested in exploration, learning something new. For most of my life, that's learning something that's new to me, but maybe other people understand. Every so often, you get lucky and you get to learn something that's new for all of society. I did that when I was in Rochester. I was at the University of Rochester studying physics, high-energy physics, and that's an area of exploration and discovery where I started. And now we're doing something very similar up here. We're learning how to live and work and exist in space so that someday we can go to deep space for an extended period of time. And that's why I love it. I love being part of something that's much bigger than me, and I can contribute in a little way, hopefully.
Hi, my name is Dylan. My question is how you restore your food and water and how you cook.
So we have a variety of ways of getting food. We have things like meals ready to eat, just like our soldiers use out in combat. These are actually probably taste a little bit better, but we can put these in an oven and warm them up, and then we can make this happens to be chicken strips, so I could make tortillas. What's really cool, we don't really have bread up here so much, but we have tortillas, and so today, for example, I'm running a little bit behind, and so I didn't get to get a lunch. So what I'm going to do when we're done talking is I'm going to make a peanut butter and jelly tortilla. And you can just clip this thing to the side of a table. And then you can just Velcro this down, and it's great. The food will just stick to this. The big problem is, for me, making the jelly stick. it wants to go everywhere. So I'm probably going to make a mess here, but hopefully I can get most of it to stick on the tortilla. But I'm leaving in 3 weeks, so maybe my friend Frank can clean it up. Yikes. So I'll move that around, and I'll probably make myself a PB&J here in about 20 minutes.
Hi, my name is Samuel, and my question is, how do astronauts tell time? How can you tell if it's morning or night?
You're probably asking that because I have 2 watches on. So we tell time just like everybody. We have a clock. And up here, we have to pick a time zone because we're going around the planet every 90 seconds. So, I'm sorry, every 90 minutes. So we see a sunrise and a sunset 16 times during the day. So right now, it happens to be daylight. And I don't know how Rochester pulled this off, but I just checked on the computer before we started talking. And we just did a flyby of Rochester not more than 5 minutes ago. So we just went right overhead. It's really tough to see us during the day. At night, you can see us because the sun is reflecting off the solar arrays. But we have to pick a time zone. We happen to pick one that goes right through London because that's what we tend to use in aviation. But that's how we tell time. In terms of being able to tell if it's daylight or nighttime, I actually can look at this computer, or when we have some time, we can go take a peek out the window. There are a couple windows around the space station, and I'm going to tell you what, those views are absolutely incredible. It doesn't matter if it's daylight, it doesn't matter if it's nighttime, it doesn't matter where you are around the planet. It is unbelievable.
Hi, my name is Parker. My question is, what do you do with your garbage?
I'll tell you what, that one hits close to home this week and this month. We've got a decent amount of garbage that is built up. You're exactly right. We're generating it all the time, whether it's unwrapping food or it's, what's left over from different experiments or just things that are old and need to go. So we do build up a good amount of garbage. We've got a couple different ways to get rid of it. We've actually just started developing a technology where we can actually jettison garbage outside, so meaning throw it out into space. Now, don't worry, it doesn't go and end up polluting space. We burn it up in the atmosphere. And so it doesn't exist, and it just goes into a bunch of different molecules. We're actually going to do something similar in just about a month. We fill up an old cargo vehicle, one that brought us all kinds of new supplies, new equipment, food, everything we need. We take out the good stuff, we put the garbage in, and then once we get that thing completely full, we'll undock it, and then it will come back towards the planet, but it'll burn up in the atmosphere too. That includes our clothes. We don't have a laundry service up here. We don't wash our clothes. We don't have a washer or a dryer. So we end up just wearing our clothes, and then when we're done with our clothes, we throw them away. And so they burn up in the atmosphere, and I'm hoping they don't make them back to Rochester.
Hi, my name is Renalis. What do you do for fun? Do you watch TV or play games?
We can actually watch TV. In fact, we'll watch the big game, or at least a little bit of it. It'll be very late for us on Sunday night. But we can watch TV if we have good satellite coverage. Right now, we're talking via satellite, but we don't always have a connection through satellite. But when we do, our friends down in Houston will uplink the video, and we can actually watch TV if we ask for something in particular. But in terms of fun things to do, there's always really fun things to do. One of the things that we love to do is called astronaut bowling. So we can try to go down the length of the entire space station without touching anything. So you get to one end, and then you push off, and we have contests to see who can make it the furthest without hitting anything, and especially without breaking anything.
Hi, my name is Bella. My question is, how was the space station put in orbit and how does it stay there?
So it took several flights, like over 100 flights of the space shuttle to bring up all the pieces of the space station. And what the really cool thing is, this is purely an international endeavor because all these pieces that came together, they had never been assembled on the ground. They had been assembled in different places all over the planet, and then they all came back up and clicked together kind of like Legos. So that's how we assembled it. And the way it stays in orbit is what we're doing right now is we're traveling actually in that direction right now at 17,500 miles an hour. So we're in orbit and we're falling towards the Earth. But you can imagine as we're going around the Earth is bending away from us. And so we just keep falling towards the Earth, but the Earth bends away from us, and we just keep falling and falling and falling, and we've been falling for 22 years.
Hi, my name is Xavier. My question is, how is there gravity on Earth but not in space?
So that's the cool thing. Here in low Earth orbit, there is gravity. Like we just talked about, we are falling, but if you can imagine, I bet you've got a pretty good throwing arm. And if you throw a baseball, it's going to go for a while, and then it's going to fall to the ground, eventually to the ground. Now, if somebody has an even stronger arm, they're going to throw it, and that ball's going to go further before it hits the ground. And now you can imagine shooting a bullet, and that will go even further before it hits the ground. And then finally, if you are in a rocket and you can get going fast enough, you're going to keep going and keep falling, but that Earth is never going to be under you, and you're going to keep falling around. So we are actually in the same gravity you are right now. Ours is reduced a tiny bit because we're not quite as close to the center of the Earth as you are. So we've got about 90% of the gravity you've got right now. We're just falling down, just like you're in an elevator and the cable has been cut.
Hi, my name is Desmani. My question is, what is it like sleeping in space? Is it comfortable? Do you have bunk beds?
I really like sleeping in space. It is so comfortable because all you're doing is you're floating. So if you can imagine being in a pool and you kind of just let yourself just float there, this is just like that, except you can breathe just fine and there's no water resistance. So what we do is we strap a sleeping bag to the wall and we get in the sleeping bag and then we zip it up and then we just hang there. The problem with this is that position that you're in is the same position you're in all day, every day. So you got to make sure that you remember, hey, I'm at work and I shouldn't be sleeping right now. I only do that in my crew quarters in my sleeping bag.
Hi, my name is Kylan. My question is, how do you keep track of stuff that's really small?
Kylan, that is super, super hard, and it can be really, really frustrating. In fact, I was just talking to my kids last week, and I told them I'm just so frustrated that everything's floating. And they said, Dad, you're in space. I said, I know, I'm happy to float. I just wish everything else didn't. So when you go to put something somewhere, it often doesn't stay there. And so what we have to do, you know, when we open up a bag, all that stuff is just going to go everywhere. So when we go and do something like a spacewalk, for example, we got to make sure that those tools don't go anywhere. So I'm going to show you this really ingenious solution that we've got. So in here are some sockets like you'd use on a drill. We have a big drill that we take out into space so that we can do our work. But we don't want to have loose sockets. So what we have, first of all, this thing is tucked inside this bag and it's attached. So if I let go, it's just going to come right back to the bag. It's not going to go off into space. And then if I want to go get a new socket, I use this pin, I put it in there, and it's stuck on the pin until I put it on my drill. Watch this. So that's how we make sure nothing gets away, because if it did, that would create a problem not only in getting our job done, but it also would put something in space that we might end up hitting with the space station someday, or somebody else might hit, and we want to avoid that at all costs.
Hi, my name is John Hector. My question is, why are you growing plants in space?
So we have two different experiments up here right now where we're growing plants. And the reasons are different for the two. One of them is so that maybe someday when you go to deep space, you've got a fresh source of food. Because you can imagine going to deep space, going to Mars, you can't really bring all the food you need. So you need to be able to grow your own. And so to do that, we need to make sure we're doing it as efficiently as possible. So we're trying different soils up here. We're doing different lighting conditions. We're doing different watering. And so we're growing these little dwarf tomatoes, which we're really excited to see. And hopefully, we're going to leave here in about 3 weeks or so. But hopefully, all the growing that we've been doing over the last couple months will actually pay off, and we'll get a dwarf tomato before we leave. If not, we'll hear about it from our buddy Frank. But the other experiment we're doing is actually a more fundamental experiment where we're trying to understand the DNA of plants and understand the changes that happen to the DNA as a result of being in space. Are plants passing that on to their next generation? Are they passing it on through their seeds, and then that whole process continues through their seeds and so on? So we're growing the plants right now. I keep pointing at it because it's right next to me. We're growing those. We're going to capture those seeds. We're going to bring them down, and we're going to repeat the whole process a couple times.
My question is, how does it feel to travel and be in space? What does liftoff feel like?
So I'll tell you, being in space itself is super, super comfortable and relaxing until things start getting away. And then you realize, oh my gosh, I need to go find it. But right now, I'm not really burning any calories. I'm not really stressing my bones or my muscles. If you're sitting there or standing there, you are actually working a lot harder than I am. I'm just floating here in the middle of the space station. And in fact, what we get to do sometimes, even though we're in free fall around the planet, there are enough molecules here that sometimes we drag down just a little bit. So we have to fire some jets to bring the space station back up to just a slightly higher altitude. And so what I like to do is I find out when that's going to happen, and then I float right in the middle of the space station, and I let the rockets fire, and then the entire space station moves around me. I stay in one place, and the space station starts moving. It's super cool. We love it being up here. As far as the ride up, it was incredibly smooth. You got to get some G's, so you feel the acceleration coming through and things feel heavy on your chest. But then once you're through the atmosphere, you tip over and then you start making that really fast acceleration so you can get into orbit and then just stay here with very, very little propellant needed.
Hi, my name is Kevin. My question is, how do you get to Earth?
Hi, that one was a little tough to hear, but I think you were asking how do we get back to Earth? And in fact, what we do is the opposite. So what we'll do, and this is coming up for us in about 3 weeks, is we are parked right now in the front of the space station, and then our spacecraft will undock, and then we will get ourselves a little bit lower than the space station, and then we will wait until we're in the exact right place over the planet, and then we will slow things down. We're going to fire jets forward, which is kind of like hitting the brakes, and then we'll start coming back down through the atmosphere. And then really, really smart people have done all the physics so that we can make sure that our heat shield is in the right orientation and that we're essentially flying the spacecraft back to the spot that we want to land. And we'll land in the water and we'll splash down under parachutes, and then the recovery ship will come out. They'll bring our spacecraft onto the recovery ship. They'll get us out of the spacecraft, and then they're going to put us on a helicopter, fly us to land, and then we'll be back to Houston in time for dinner.
Hi, my name is Jaden. My question is, what happens if an astronaut doesn't get along with other astronauts?
That's why I think we've got duct tape all over the space station, just in case. You can solve any problem with duct tape. No, honestly, fortunately, I'm up here with incredible people, and that's not by accident. We work really hard at NASA to make sure that we understand each other and that we are able to work together well. We do a bunch of training. We do things like we go out camping for maybe a week or two at a time, and we put ourselves in situations that are not super comfortable, where we know we're going to have to work hard and maybe get on each other's nerves a little bit, and we figure out a way to make sure that we're able to talk about that and make sure we don't create a problem that really doesn't need to exist. So fortunately, we haven't had to deal with that, and I hope that's not why they're sending me home here in 3 weeks.
Hi, my name is Jen Hales. My question is, what happens if you bring food outside the space station, and how long does it take for an apple to go bad in outer space?
Well, I'll be perfectly honest. When we did 3 spacewalks in November and December, and when you're out there on a spacewalk, it's about 7 hours long while you're out there. And prior to that, you've kind of been in the suit for 4 or 5 hours already before you even are able to open up the hatch and go out. I'm saying this because I would have loved to have had some food outside of the space station. That would have been great because I got awfully hungry. But we don't take food outside of the space station. If we went outside of the space station and outside of our space suit, that would be in the vacuum of space. And so you're right. I think the food would tend to really not be edible for a couple reasons. Here, in low Earth orbit, the temperature varies wildly from like minus 100 Celsius or so to over 100, 120 Celsius. And it just depends on how much solar radiation we're getting at that moment. So I think, that kind of thermal cycling, making it hot and then cold, I think that would do a number on an apple, even though there's really no oxygen out there for it to oxidize. So I think I'm going to stick with earthbound apples. But I'll tell you what, when we get them up here, we get really excited because they come up on cargo vehicles, and we're really excited for fresh fruit and vegetables. We don't get them very often, but they don't last very long. They get bad pretty quickly. So we try to get them eaten in the first couple days.
Hi, my name is Hillary Olson, and I'm the president and CEO of the RMSC. On behalf of the greater Rochester area, we'd like to express our gratitude for the astronauts on Expedition 68 and for their time here today. Thank you for answering our questions, driving scientific exploration and discovery, and inspiring future generations to do the same. Thank you also to the students of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. School Number 9 here in Rochester for asking awesome questions and for learning about what it takes to live life in space.
Well, thank you, Rochester, New York. I miss you. I did go to school there at University of Rochester. I miss you guys. Maybe not so much in February, but for sure closer to summer. Thank you for coming aboard the International Space Station. It's been really great to hang out with you for a few minutes, and hopefully I'll see you after splashdown. Take care.
Station, this is Houston ACR. That concludes the event.
Thank you to all participants. Station, we are now resuming operational audio communications.